So, it's been a year since Google introduced Google Tag Gateway. After using it for longer, here are my latest thoughts. First, a quick reminder how Google Tag Gateway works. Without Google Tag Gateway, you have, let's say, a website. On that website, you have maybe Google Tag Manager installed or Google Tag, and then they just send data directly to Google's platforms. And the requests that contain that data can look something like this. As you can see, they are using Google's domains. But if you start using Google Tag Gateway, then between your website and Google's products is a content delivery network, also known as CDN. In that case, requests sent from your website to the content delivery network are using your own domain. And then CDN forwards that data further to Google's domains. But in this case, the browser does not see this part right here. The browser only sees requests sent to your own domain. So the main goal here is to increase data accuracy because using your own domain is better than using third-party domains. Fewer browsers and their extensions will interfere with your setup. Google claims that this kind of setup can increase your number of signals, or in other words, events, conversions, by 11%. But personally, I've seen lower numbers, somewhere closer to 5 or 7%. But if you're looking for a quick win, this is definitely worth a try. By the way, if you want to learn how to configure Google Tag Gateway, I will post a link to a tutorial below this video. Here's a quick demo of how Google Tag Gateway works in action. On this website, I have activated it, and instead of loading Google Tag from Google's domain, I'm actually loading it from my own domain. And if I click on that request and look at the response, you will see that this is Google Tag code right here. Also, there is a Google Analytics page view request right here, which, as you can see, is also sent to my own custom domain. However, what I've noticed is that in some cases, Google is still using its own domains. I could not replicate it in this particular case, but I've definitely seen these kind of situations. And apparently, this is expected behavior. In many cases, Google Tag Gateway will be using your own domain, but in some cases, and I assume this has to do something with European Economic Area or maybe some compliance stuff, but in some cases, you might still see requests sent to googleanalytics.com or googleadservices.com or something like that, which means that those requests might still be blocked by browser extensions. In fact, even this request right here using my own domain, it can still be blocked because I can clearly see all the other parameters. I know that this is tracking ID, I know that this is event name, so the fact that I can see this means that browser extensions can also see this. And some ad blockers will still prevent this request from working. That's probably the reason why the usual uplift that I see in data quality is somewhere closer to 5% rather than 20 or 30%. And one more thing to mention is that I have heard people complaining that after they enable Google Tag Gateway, their internal traffic filters stop working. And I mean this part right here where you have define internal traffic and you can include your employees or your own IP address. I don't know if or when Google will address this, but this is something for you to keep in mind. So even though Google Tag Gateway looks promising and it's quite easy to implement, it's still not perfect. So what is a better solution? In my opinion, that's server-side tagging. With server-side Google Tag Manager, you can send data from your website to your server. In that case, you can also configure your request to use your own custom domain, but also you can hide other request parameters, which means that ad blockers or other browser extensions, they will not be able to easily see that this particular request is related to tracking. And then you can send that data not only to Google's products, because Google Tag Gateway works only with Google products, but you can also use server-side Google Tag Manager to send data to other vendors like Meta. So this part right here, related to custom domains and request parameters, this will already give you a better uplift than Google Tag Gateway. And if you want to get even better results, for example, with ad attribution, you can enrich the data that you send to Google Ads, for example. You can do that by fetching additional information from your other systems. For example, if a purchase is tracked by your server, you can then enrich that purchase information with the user data from your CRM, which means that instead of sending just a plain purchase data, you can also include user data, and that will significantly improve ad attribution, which means that your customer acquisition costs can go potentially down and your profit generated by ads can go up. So as you can see, server-side tagging is definitely much more powerful and flexible. However, there are some nuances as well. First of all, you need to have specific technical knowledge to configure that, because Google Tag Gateway, at least with Cloudflare, it just requires several clicks and you're done. While with server-side tagging, you will definitely need to spend more time configuring tags, triggers, variables, and all that stuff. And you have to host that server somewhere, which means that you will have to pay a monthly fee for your setup. By the way, did you know that I have a bunch of free ebooks on Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics? So if you want to better learn these topics, then click the link below the video, download those ebooks, and get started. So, what is my final verdict? If you're working mainly with Google's products, you have no or very minimal technical skills, and you're looking for some quick win to at least slightly improve your data accuracy, then Google Tag Gateway is still a good option. However, if you're using other tools as well, for example, meta ads, you have necessary technical skills, you want a better uplift in your data quality, you want to do data enrichment and control what kind of information is sent to vendors, and you're ready to pay some money for the server, then server-side Google Tag Manager is a much better option. The requirements are higher, but the payoff is also much higher, while you can think of Google Tag Gateway as a low-hanging fruit. Also, one more reason why you might want to consider server-side Google Tag Manager is running ads. If you're running ads and you want to optimize their performance from the technical standpoint, then that's one more reason to choose server-side tagging. Because several years ago, it was more like a luxury or a nice thing to have. These days, it's becoming a must-have. And these were my latest thoughts on Google Tag Gateway. If you found this video useful, hit the like button. That will help me understand what videos do you like and what should I create in the future. Also, if you want to learn more about Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics, then subscribe to this channel. My name is Julius, this is Analytics Mania, and I'll see you in the next video.